Hi everyone, in this video we are going to begin with chemical digestion. So we already know the food which we eat that contains very complex nutrients like carbohydrates, proteins and fats. Okay, these carbohydrate, proteins and fats are actually very complex nutrients and the size is very big. So they cannot be absorbed into our bloodstream as such. So what happens is whenever we consume carbohydrates, fats and proteins in our diet, they always require digestion. Okay, so chemical digestion is actually the process of breaking down of these large insoluble and complex molecules like carbohydrates, fats and proteins into small soluble substances. Okay, so converting these large insoluble molecules like carbohydrates, fats and proteins, okay, into small soluble substances so that they can be easily absorbed into the bloodstream and can be transported to different parts of the body. Okay, now the food which we eat, it has actually macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats and proteins which require digestion. Plus it also has two micronutrients, vitamins and minerals. Okay, these vitamins and minerals are also very important for the body of human beings, but they do not require any digestion. So whenever we consume minerals and vitamins in our food, they are directly absorbed into the bloodstream without undergoing any process of digestion. So remember, only carbohydrates, fats and proteins, they require digestion. Okay. Now in human beings, the process of digestion occurs in alimentary canal, and this alimentary canal is almost 8 to 9 meter long in human beings. Okay. And it starts from your mouth. Okay. We keep food in our mouth, and when we swallow, the food goes to your esophagus or the food pipe. Okay. So this alimentary canal begins from the mouth and it ends at anus. Anus is actually the opening in our body from where we remove undigested food. Okay, so chemical digestion process in human beings actually occurs in alimentary canal, and this alimentary canal is almost 8 to 9 meters long. Now this is actually your human digestive system, or we can say the alimentary canal. Okay, so first part of human digestive system is this mouth. Okay, and in this mouth we actually have tongue. So what are the parts of mouth? We have tongue, salivary gland, okay, and we have small hanging cartilage at the back of our mouth, and this cartilage is known as epiglottis. This everybody must have noticed in the mouth of another person. Okay, when we wide open our mouth, so at the back we can see a small cartilage hanging from the mouth, okay, from the upper palate actually. Okay, so that small piece of cartilage is known as epiglottis. Now after mouth, another tube comes. Okay, this hollow tube is known as food pipe, and the another name is esophagus. Now from esophagus, the next part of alimentary canal is stomach. Okay, from stomach the food goes to the small intestine. Now we have two parts of small intestine. This is duodenum. Okay, the first part of small intestine. Okay, this first part of small intestine is known as duodenum. It receives food from stomach, okay, and from duodenum the food goes to the second part of small intestine, and that's known as ileum. Okay, so small intestine has two parts, duodenum and ileum. Okay, and from ileum the food goes to large intestine. Okay, large intestine otherwise is also known as colon. Okay, so colon or large intestine receives undigested food from small intestine, and this is the last region of large intestine, which is known as rectum. Here undigested food gets stored temporarily, and at bottom the opening of this rectum is actually known as your anus. Okay, so anus is the opening in our alimentary canal from where we actually remove undigested food. Apart from this alimentary canal, these are the parts of alimentary canal. Mouth, in mouth we have tongue, salivary gland and teeth. Okay, and then comes esophagus, then stomach, and then you have this small intestine, that is duodenum, ileum, large intestine, rectum and anus. Okay, so apart from this, there are two very important other organs which forms the part of human digestive system, and these are liver and pancreas. Okay, so this organ here, this large lobe-shaped organ here is actually your liver, and just below stomach, this leaf-like structure is known as pancreas. So in further classes, we will actually learn how this organ, liver and pancreas actually assist the process of digestion in human beings. Okay, so these are the parts of human digestive system. So first understand few points about chemical digestion. In human beings, the process of chemical digestion is always done by enzymes. Okay, so these enzymes are nothing but these enzymes are also called as biocatalyst. This we have already discussed, we have already studied in unit 5. Okay, enzymes are also known as biocatalyst because they are present in the body of living organisms. Plus these enzymes, they increases the speed of any chemical reaction which is taking place inside our body. Okay, so chemical digestion process, because we eat so many things in a day, isn't it? So the process of chemical digestion always done by enzymes. Now there are three major categories of enzymes. Okay, we know that there are three nutrients present in food which require digestion. These are carbohydrates, fats and proteins, isn't it? So there are three categories of enzymes which actually helps in digestion of these carbohydrates, proteins and fats. So enzymes which actually helps in digestion of carbohydrates, they are known as carbohydrates. Okay, enzymes which helps in digestion of protein are called protease. Enzymes which helps in digestion of fat are known as lipase. Okay, so these carbohydrates, they break down complex carbohydrates. That means they actually break down the polysaccharides into disaccharide or monosaccharides. Okay, so they'll break down complex carbohydrates into simple substances, okay, into simple sugars. Then this protease actually breaks down protein molecule into peptides and amino acids. When we will actually learn about the digestion, I will tell you the meaning of peptides and amino acids. Okay, and lipase breaks down fatty acids and glycerol. Okay, so lipase actually breaks down fat into fatty acids and glycerol. Okay, so carbohydrates is the enzyme which breaks down complex carbohydrates into simple sugars. Protease helps in breaking down of large protein molecules into peptides and amino acids, and this lipase enzyme breaks down fat molecule into fatty acids and glycerol. Okay, now here in the box which is given at the bottom, there are 2 points written: mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. This point you have to understand. Mechanical digestion is a type of digestion in which the large pieces of food is actually broken down into smaller pieces. Okay, for example, when we take a bite of food in a mouth, now the bite of the food is actually a large piece of food. Now with the help of our teeth, which are actually present in our mouth, what we are doing, we are breaking down this large piece of food into smaller pieces. Okay, very small pieces of food. Okay, and this is actually done to increase the surface area of the food so that enzymes can work efficiently. Okay, enzymes can digest the nutrients present in this food efficiently. This actually increases the enzymes efficiency. Okay, so mechanical digestion is done when large pieces of food is actually broken down into smaller pieces so that the surface area of the food increases. Okay, and hence enzymes can act on it properly, isn't it? So this is called mechanical digestion, and in mechanical digestion, no chemical change occurs in the nutrient. So for example, when you are eating food and in that food starch is present. So if you're taking a large piece of chapati, okay, in that starch is present, and our teeth is breaking down the large piece of chapati into smaller pieces. Okay, so even in smaller pieces of chapati also starch is present. So there is no change in the chemical structure, or there is no chemical change in the structure of starch. Okay, so this is called mechanical digestion. And chemical digestion is when the starch will undergo digestion under the influence of enzymes and will break down into simple sugar. So that is chemical digestion. So mechanical digestion is the breakdown of food into smaller pieces without chemical change to the food molecule, and chemical digestion is breakdown of large insoluble molecules into small soluble molecules. So this digestion process begins in the mouth itself. Okay, in mouth two digestion takes place. Both the types of digestion are mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. Mechanical digestion in mouth is actually done with the help of teeth. Okay, it's written here, you can see mechanical digestion is done with the help of teeth. Okay, and what happens in mechanical digestion is the large pieces of food are actually broken down into the smaller pieces. So mechanical digestion can also be called physical breakdown of the food. Okay, and apart from teeth, we have tongue, Okay, so what this tongue does, tongue actually helps in mixing saliva with the food and forms the bolus of the food. Okay, so when we are chewing the food, so this tongue helps in mixing saliva which is produced in our mouth. Saliva is also produced in our mouth. So tongue helps in mixing the saliva with uh, uh, the food which we are actually eating. Okay, and it forms the bolus of the food, small balls of the food. Okay, and then we swallow this small ball of the food. Okay, and then we have salivary glands in our mouth. There are three types of salivary gland: parotid gland, mandibular gland, and sublingual gland. Okay, so parotid, submandibular, and sublingual gland. So parotid is the largest salivary gland present in a mouth. Okay, this is actually present just below your ears. Okay, and all these three glands together produces saliva. So saliva is nothing but it's a watery liquid present in our mouth. Okay, so saliva actually contains water and mucus. Okay, so this water and mucus present in saliva actually lubricates the food, and this mucus actually binds all the food pieces together. Okay, teeth will actually break down large piece of food into smaller pieces, and this smaller pieces of piece will together smaller pieces of food will actually together will be held together by mucus which is present in the saliva. So this water lubricates the food, mucus binds these food particles together. Okay, and apart from this, a very important enzyme is present in the saliva of the human beings, and that enzyme is known as amylase, or you can call it as salivary amylase. Okay, and the salivary amylase enzyme breaks down starch into maltose. So this point is important, that starch do not directly get digested into glucose. We know that starch is a polysaccharide. Okay, this you have studied in biomolecules chapter. Starch is a polysaccharide. Okay, and starch is actually made up of many glucose units. Okay, but starch do not directly gets digested into glucose. Starch first undergoes digestion by salivary amylase enzyme, and salivary amylase enzyme breaks down starch into maltose. So this point is important. Okay, amylase enzyme will break down starch into another sugar which is known as maltose. Now this maltose is actually made up of two glucose units. Okay, so two glucose units together join and they form maltose. Okay, so the chemical digestion process starts in the mouth itself. In saliva, there is an enzyme called salivary amylase is present, and this salivary amylase helps in the breaking down of starch into maltose. From mouth, the food actually goes to the next part of the alimentary canal, which is known as esophagus. Okay, now this esophagus is actually a tube which connects your mouth with the with stomach. As you can see here in the diagram, esophagus. Okay, this tube is actually known as esophagus. So this esophagus, you can see clearly, connects your mouth with the stomach. Okay, this tube till here is actually your esophagus. So esophagus connects your mouth with the stomach. Now what happens is, after we swallow food, food passes through esophagus and reaches the stomach. Okay, and there are two tubes present in our chest. The front tube is actually known as trachea. Trachea is also called windpipe, and the tube which is present behind trachea is actually your esophagus. Now what happens is, a small piece of cartilage called epiglottis is present at the back of the mouth. So whenever we swallow food, this epiglottis actually covers the mouth of the esophagus. Okay, it actually covers the mouth of the trachea, the mouth of the windpipe, so that when we are swallowing the food, so the food should directly go into the esophagus. It should not enter inside the trachea or the windpipe. Okay, so the function of epiglottis is to prevent the entry of food into trachea or windpipe when we are swallowing the food. Okay, and now this food passes through esophagus, and the food passes through esophagus by the process of peristalsis. Now this process is important. This process you must have studied in lower classes. Okay, peristalsis. Peristalsis is nothing but the wave-like movement of the wall of esophagus. Okay, peristalsis is the wave-like movement of the wall of esophagus, and this wave-like movement of the wall of esophagus actually helps in helps in pushing down of the food through the alimentary canal. Okay, so this point is important. 1 mark question is asked in IGCSE that by which of the following process food passes through esophagus or through alimentary canal. Okay, in human beings. So the process is peristalsis. Now I will explain this peristalsis process with the help of this image. We actually have hollow organs in our body. Okay, hollow organs like we have urinary bladder. Okay, we have uterus, we have alimentary canal. Okay, so all these organs are completely hollow from inside. Hollow means they are empty. There's nothing present inside them. So these hollow organs in our body are actually made up of smooth muscles. Okay, these hollow organs, they are made up of what? They are made up of smooth muscles. Okay, now these smooth muscles, they have the ability to contract and relax. Okay, there are two types of smooth muscles present in our alimentary canal. One is known as circular muscle, okay, and one is known as longitudinal muscles. So this inner muscles are known as circular muscle, okay, and this outer muscle is actually known as longitudinal muscles. Okay, now both these muscles, circular as well as longitudinal muscles, they contract and relax alternatively. What happens is both these circular and longitudinal muscles, they contract and relax alternatively. Okay, now what happens is when the food bolus, this is the bolus of the food, the small ball of the food. So when this food bolus is passing through the esophagus, the upper part of the esophagus, okay, here first the circular muscle will contract. You can see here the circular muscle is contracting. Okay, now this circular muscle contracts to make the lumen of the alimentary canal smaller and squeezing food towards the stomach. Okay, the circular muscles actually contract so that the lumen, the meaning of term lumen is the empty space which is present inside the alimentary canal. Okay, so the meaning of term lumen is the empty space, the hollow space which is present inside the alimentary canal. So when the food is passing through esophagus, the circular muscles, they first contract in the upper part. Upper part means towards our mouth. Okay, so the circular muscle will first contract so that the lumen of the esophagus can reduce and the food will be pushed downwards, okay, forward towards the stomach. And once the food moves ahead a little bit, now the circular muscle will relax. Okay, here in this area, in this region, you can see circular muscle will relax so that the walls of the alimentary canal will expand. Okay, the walls of the alimentary canal will expand and space is created so that the food can move forward again. Understood? So what happens is peristalsis occurs as a result of rhythmic contraction and relaxation of two muscles. Okay, and these two are circular and longitudinal muscles. And remember, these muscles are controlled unconsciously by nervous system. The meaning of this term is, like for example, when you have swallowed food and now you think your brain decides that your food should actually stop in the center of esophagus. So that is not possible. Okay, that's not possible because smooth muscles are actually involuntary muscles. Okay, the working of smooth muscles cannot be controlled by our brain. Okay, so it is actually controlled unconsciously by the nervous system. Now the circular muscles, they actually contract and they changes the radius of the esophagus. Okay, while longitudinal muscles, they changes the length of the esophagus. Okay, so contraction of circular muscle behind the food bolus constricts. Constricts means reduces the size of the lumen and it prevents the bolus of the food from being pushed back towards the mouth. And the contraction of longitudinal muscles where the food bolus is located moves it along the gut. So when these longitudinal muscles, they contract, so what will happen when these longitudinal muscles, they contract, the circular muscles, they relax and the food bolus is pushed forward. Okay, and as a result of contraction and relaxation of circular and longitudinal muscles, a wave-like contraction occurs in the esophagus. Okay, like this, a wave-like contraction occurs in the esophagus and it will push the food bolus downward from mouth to the anus. Okay, so this wave-like contraction, okay, this wave-like contraction of esophagus or alimentary canal, which causes the movement of food bolus forward from mouth to anus, is known as peristalsis. Okay, so peristalsis is actually the process by which the bolus of the food moves along the alimentary canal. I hope you people are clear with this. Further in chemical digestion, we will learn in next video. Take care till then. Bye-bye.